another story, how hard it was for me to do it. I put all my effort and energy into these illustrations. And anyway, my most favorite page, my most favorite part of my whole discovery is looking at how this scales up from any magnification. I mean, the discovery is so perfect mathematically, you cannot imagine it. My basis of this discovery is if there was one error mathematically, one error, the whole thing would be trashed. It's unbelievable. And my claim is that I have mathematical perfection. Okay, back to the coil. So this is how it was wound. Willie was doing it the easiest. He was doing it every fifth. We started it up at the top, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going through the center. It's very significant because it's inverting. It doesn't go through the hole. I said it wrong. Nothing goes through the hole. Nothing. The whole principle of things going through the hole is wrong. Water, when it goes down the drain, a tornado, our solar system, the Milky Way, is processes. It can't go in a straight line. So what happens is it defines the hole. We have a camera shutter. Nothing goes through it. Everything is the lip of the hole. If we have a camera shutter, it may be so close and tight together that it's blocking the photon, that it's blocking the light. But in reality, it never touches in the center. You cannot block up that hole in the center. If you do, the black hole of our Milky Way will perish. It will incinerate. You will have logjam. All moving, living, dynamic systems have a hole in the center, and that's the zero. Still with me a little? Just for my own pleasure, because I care, because I like to be meticulous, I'm just going to throw out a few points. Zero is not on any number line. That's why you don't have a circle with 360 and then 0, then 1. If 0 was there, it would be deflecting, you'd be adding a gradient, and you'd have a false calculation. Still with me? 0 is not in any multiplication series. It does not begin a multiplication table. There's not 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. What I say is insanity. A number cannot be created or destroyed. It's just like matter to energy, energy to matter. The discovery that I did is I pieced numbers together, 1 through 9, like a jigsaw puzzle, and it made a toroid, the shape of the universe. Our body's called the human torso. Our red blood cells are little dimpled hockey pucks, toroids. Toroid is just the fancy name for a donut, torus. When we look at the toroid well, that means well, are you healthy? It's called a funnel. Are you having fun? It is the principle of life, of health, the whole. Everything must go in, everything must go out. If you don't have that, you have stomach shutdown and the body dies. Every machine is based on the same principle. The universe, our body, everything. And it's all being reticulated by spirit, which is creating the lattice, the matrix. Spirit causes this winding pattern. It's pretty hard to believe. I won't dwell on it for the moment. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to go through the hole, or defining the hole. I'm going to go around the lip. And I'm going to go same direction. Everything's a ratchet. It only goes one way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I should have gone 4, actually. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now I'm going to go 4 again. 1, 2, 3, 4. In my mind, I'm looking at the Fibonacci sequence right now because the Fibonacci sequence makes a torus. Every fourth number of this Fibonacci sequence is either the doubling circuit or the gap space, the 396. I haven't explained it to you yet, but the base 10 system is not one system. 396 are not a part of the 124875. It's two separate systems helically woven together. Once you separate them, you get rid of, for instance, most importantly, endless non-repeating decimals. There's no such thing. Pi is not an endless decimal. Everything that we use as the fixed constants, as we use as the basis of all our calculations, is completely erroneous. Math has built into it an automatic correction operator forbidden to make an error. The operator cannot crash. And when you do a mathematical impossibility, you get an endless non-repeating decimal because pi goes through the hole in the center. It bisects the circle, which is impossible because nothing goes through the hole. Everything goes around the lip. And numbers, geometry, surface topology, every branch of math, when properly combined together, as exists in vortex-based mathematics, this form of arithmetic of math that suddenly turns into surface topology, it turns into everything. It doesn't allow you to make a mistake if you learn the language. So I went to the fourth one again. Let's see where I'm at. Now I'm going to go again. So here's where I started, right here. So I'm looking at ending. This is, we'll call 1, 2, 3. We'll call this 9. This will be 8. This will be 1. When I hit 1 or 8, that's what a conventional coil would be. But now the wire is this long. It's already 1, 2, 3. Anyway, this is what has been by common street usage called a Rodin coil, or as Tyler, we joke, is sometimes a classic Rodin coil, like Coca-Cola Classic. So anyway, where am I? Where did I just come from? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I'm making a mistake. Where am I? Good. I can't tell. You get the idea? This is one circuit. All these coils are two circuits, two spools, two conductors. It is incorrect that they do multiple turns and multiple wraps, and it goes around many times and you build it up. It's completely incorrect. These are my friends. Everybody's been waiting for me for years to try and go into greater detail how a coil is made properly. A stranded coil is wrong. Layering up a coil is wrong. It's crazy. It works. It's more powerful than any motor today, but that's because the present-day state-of-the-art is so primitive. They get more magnetism, more power, more everything. But everything I'm doing is based on the ideal, because I found the ideal, and now I'm trying to compare it to what exists. Instead of experimenting and building it up and trying to find the ideal, I'm going from the top down. Everyone understands me? Okay. So the numbers on the toroid map show, and believe me, it was quite a surprise. When I did the numbers and I did the huge architect paper and I had the compasses, it took over 23 years when I finally completed it. It's a long story how I knew what I was going to do, and it's because I was working with the team. And they had already discovered the missing elements, which happened to be sunflower. Great circles arrayed around the axis. It's a long story. It was with Scott Gosler, other people. I was quite surprised to see that the coil is bifiliar. And the bifiliar, meaning not only is there one doubling circuit, but there's two doubling circuits. And those doubling circuits have a gap space in the middle. And this gap space is of equal width to the two conductors. This gap space in DNA is called the major groove. It's recognized by all microbiology in DNA. But what you're not ready for is called the minor groove, which is on the outside because I went around so many times. It's okay. I went around so many times that once it comes side by side on the outskirts of the conductors, because that DNA backbone, because it has a gap space in the center, it also has an outside. And when that outside abuts those helixes, see, I probably think that most people think that incorrectly that an artist's rendition of DNA is that it is symmetrical, that it is even. It is not. It is displaced. There's a big space. Does everyone follow what I'm saying? There's a distension in DNA. That's where your ladders are. You still with me? On the outside of that space is called the minor groove. And it turns out it's right here in this coil. It's right here in this coil. They haven't highlighted it. They didn't make a wall for you to see. But they know it's there because they made it, right? Right, John? Right, Willie?
Absolutely.
And that's called a shear. That's called a hidden grain. These coils, matrices, lattices, just like wood, when a carpenter works on it, you have to go with the grain. I wouldn't have a hand if I wouldn't have fingers if I didn't have lines between them. The lines are critical, okay? And using this winding pattern, because of the way the wire, the distance of it, how it's put together, and eventually, once I explain it, once we understand it, the phasing or activation sequence, you have a natural insulation between the conductors. And remember that the conductors are going in opposite directions. You don't use shellac, you don't use rubber, they will not short out. Okay. So how to make the next stage up coil? So it turns out that many bases don't count, don't exist. Base 12 doesn't exist, base 15, there's no base until you get to base 26 after base 10. The reason is that the next prime above the number 3 is the prime number 5. And the next number, and what you do is everything that we have in 3D space is in all our technology, everything is based on primes squaring. So the next prime 5 squared makes mod 25 base 26. All the bases in between base 26 and base 10 don't work. They have what I refer to as an aberration. Okay? You have an abrupt multiplication series or cutoff. I don't think you're really familiar how I model 3D space with multiplication series. Every axis is a different multiplication series. It's really beautiful. It's another world, and it cycles. What they taught you, which was the classic Cartesian coordinate system with 0 in the center, is worthless. I have a double coordinate system. Each one's a different polarity. And by having 2 of them put together, I get the toroid skin, and I can map perfectly how things expand and contract and their polarity in 3D space. I said that the binary code doesn't exist. Spirit, or this post-surge, emanates in 3s. I said the center one is the control. So when the center one's positive, the ones on the sides are both negative. It's cutting everything. The binary code is you still use positive and negative, but it goes positive, positive, with the negative being the control. And then the next set is negative, positive, negative. When you break it into thirds, the system works. I want to show polarization, but I'm not going to try and go there. I want to show horizontal stratification, or how everything's going through a sieve, but I'm not going to try and go there. What I'm going to say is that for base 26, instead of 1 pair for base 10, base 26 is seamless, and there are 2 pairs, 4 conductors in opposite directions. And the mathematics are perfect for the circuits, for the axes, for everything. And that's how you make John, Willie, everyone else. That means if you're going to ramp up the coil, you're going to start adding more pairs next to each other. What I find fascinating is that the gap space, 396, 693 for base 10, or for base 26, you're going to have 5, 10, 25, 15. It's always going to be multiples of the prime, or it's going to be made out of the prime. It's not multiples because it's making what I call underpinning nested vortices. Is that the gap space, this gap space always stays the same. It's the same width as the conductor. And there's only 1 gap space in the center. So even though we're getting more conductors, it seems to me that magnetism and the flux in the center is compressing. You still with me? This magnetism and this flux affect these windings so that there's an interaction across this gap space. And it creates compressing and decompressing micro vortices. I call them underpinning nested vortices. This coil is controlled, if you want to make a spaceship out of it, a spaceship that has no wings, a spaceship that has a perfect nozzle. You don't have to return to Earth for fuel. You can go anywhere in the universe, never have to come back to Earth for fuel. I have a bad sore throat. What was I saying? I forgot. Well, what I was saying that as you increase the circuits, the number of pairs, the gap space stays the same. It just gets longer. Because now there's 5 numbers for, actually 5 double, 10 numbers for base 26. Just as 396, what I was thinking about, which was hard to follow the train, is this. Because it's just, there's no way for you to be ready for this. These micro vortices are like the dimples on a Dunlap or Spalding golf ball. Based on their arrangement determines where it goes for the spaceship. When it's staggered, everything's in perfect equilibrium. It's off by like 2 to 1 or 1 to 0.5 or 1. In other words, they're staggered. When you have a gun clip and you want to have more bullets in it, you don't put them in rows. You put them in staggered column because you have denser packing. The vortices work on that principle. All the math that I do is not based on squares. I don't use a quad ruled piece of paper, graph. I take the axis, I turn it 90 degrees, and I have diagonals which make spirals. There's no horizontal or vertical line in this. So anytime you see someone doing a cosmology of a black hole and they're doing cross sections or vertical sections, it's false. Because everything in our universe is a diagonal. Thank you. Okay, I'll take one little sip. Well, I won't. I'll wait. It hurts so bad anyway. Okay, so the issue that arises is this is a single wrap coil. Well, we do want to make coils that are multi-layered. Do I know whether the next layer should be 2 pair, and the next layer above that 6 pair? I don't know. Never had the funding to do the computer work and to hire the illustrators and the calculations and all the things because it takes enormous effort and resources. So I've stopped pretty much 99% of all my research and work because it's exceeded what everything is capable of. I have a lot of friends that have done endless work on this, and they made huge discoveries. Professors, engineers, normal people, business owners. Anyway, so I have not determined what each layer is and should there be a space between them and how it all works. All I know is that as you build up, that the math, as you build it up, it increases the numbers of pairs. It keeps the same gap space. A lot of time, I don't agree with this winding. I could be wrong. Could be. I don't agree with the counter wind. I agree. People are doing intuitive. They're trying to do different effects. All the windings I do is always based by painting by the numbers, is following the pathway of these doubling circuits. Okay, I'll stop there. I don't even know if I can go through these illustrations. There's so many of them, if I can find what I want, but I'll try. And I haven't explained the skin, and I haven't explained the numbers of the shear. But I'll see if I can pull up the illustrations. Does anyone have any question? You got to yell it really loud. And
I've done a lot of study on electricity and wave,
I can't hear you well enough. So who wants to give it to him? Anybody? Yeah. It's on. It really helps when you put it close to your mouth. I want you to know this is my once a year wearing a button shirt, by the way, too.
Listen here, I have done an extraordinary amount of work with free energy, trying to figure out the energy that's already there.
A little bit closer to your mouth.
And understand the effort around the energy and the force. And for instance, you take a metal bar. A metal bar has electrons all through it. You touch it on this end, whatever your polarization is, all the electrons and ions run to the other end of the bar. And if you touch the other end of the bar, whatever they
What kind of machines have you had? What have you ever made? Have you made motors, generators? Or how are you applying what you're doing?
Well, Marco, working with HHO and been around the water and the salt water, and I just understand that water is a part of all materials, and water is quenched in all materials. That all matter is made of H2O, and that one part is helium in the hydrogen part, and that the oxygen is a part of that, and that is of all matter. That the water is actually the energy, the source energy, and that if you watch and study water itself and Schoenberger's statement and his energy, and you start to understand that the water, the effect of mass water and how the water flows, then you understand the field of energy is the same in the air and the oxygen.
I mean, I certainly believe that Schoenberger, I refer to him as the father of Vortexian mechanics. Yet today, and there's so many experts on, how do we say his name? Schoenberger? How do you say it? But obviously we're having trouble understanding that log or those principles that water's following, because we're not able to do all those incredible things he talked about, such as the egg shapes of the rocks and the trout Willie talks about. And he eventually discovered that the principle of the water could be any continuous medium, because he translated it from water to a vertical lift flying machine. Remember the picture with him bending over, holding that big thing?
The egg is the most powerful
What is
structure. The egg is the most powerful structure of energy and holds the most force of energy. And in my understanding of energy, that I am looking at the leverage of energy and how to leverage, such as creating a block and pulley effect, and multiplying the wraps around a block multiplies the amount of strength that you can pick up. In other words, mechanical is exactly the way matter works. That's why it works.
I have chalk. Did I even bring it with me? Is it here? I've said it, I have they always refer to my entourage or my gang, the Rodin gang. Everyone's seen all the friends I come with every year, right? Tyler, Randy, it's just endless. But we've all disbanded now because of lack of having a base of operations and resources. We're working from afar with each other and contributing. And so I don't have what I really need, which is really good visual. But when you started talking, you were mentioning the ripple effect, the wave. You mentioned the flux, the pulse, the surge. And I guess we're going to be here tomorrow. And I would like to go out to the patio tomorrow with the chalk I have is sidewalk chalk. And I'd like to, because it's so big and it's so unbelievable, the scaling. I will do from one end of the chair to the other end of that far chair. I will draw on the ground. I will draw a quad ruled piece of paper, a graph, and I will put numbers together. And I will show you how you can see how it's like filings on a drum, like a bongo, and they become stationary and they make patterns. I was able to piece numbers together in such a way as that no number moves, and that the vibration is communicated through each number to the next number, just as water does it. I turn numbers into a continuous medium. Is that the most craziest thing anyone could ever say?
Sir, that's not crazy. I grow a garden, and I look at shells in a spiral fashion, and the technology I have derived your mathematics has explained it, and in theory I started to proof it, and that's why I'm standing here today. And that the Mother Nature's natural is there. A sunflower, look at the windings in a sunflower. Look at the windings in a shell. Look at the spiral effect. I was on the beach with a bunch of kids the other day, the 1 through 9, and then 10, 11, 12, and you keep going around and everything comes back to 1 through 9 being the galaxy of the one number that everything comes back to. So therefore, all mathematics, your Fibonacci sequence comes back to it. Your growth line, for instance, you feed a mouse has to eat a certain amount of energy to live, and there's a mathematical equation between the mouse and the elephant, and the elephant in the growth line comes into effect.
This is why
all matter is of the same form and comes back to the...
This is why I've promulgated the math over the machines, and why I always, and you know, Fibonacci is a toroid. I could show you in a second. Everything is the same thing, has the same invisible thread, the same number patterns. It's all one. And so, and Professor Nelson, University of Hawaii, I have a paper if you want to see it. It's called the Philotaxis prime number sieve. Every time there's a new it's Philotaxis every time it pokes out a new bud, a new growth, and he predicts prime numbers with it. There's a mathematics to biology, microbiology. If I was to say what my profession is, and I wanted to think of myself in the best light, I would call myself a biomathematician, because you can actually determine how these chemicals cleave and where cleavage and receptor sites are on molecules and how everything works.
I think it's all in the same.
Okay, well, so is there any questions about doing 4 conductors on how to do it? If based on how I'm saying, meaning you follow the same 2, the people who've made coils before. Willie, can you make a 4 conductor based on how I've just described it?
Yeah.
John, can you make a 4 conductor based on how I've described it?
Hold on a second.
Is Don there? Who else has made a Rodin coil? A few people? You've made one? Andrew's made one?
What would you like?
Can you make a 2 pair instead of a 1 pair? And so instead of there just being 2 conductors, there's now 4. It's amazing how many of you really aren't familiar with my work and haven't seen all the illustrations and stuff.
What would you like, an 11-5 2 pair?
I wouldn't even mind a 4 pair. The trick then is how to energize them.
Push the T-bar up. Push the T-bar up on the video mixer. Okay, now let's see here. I need to just look and see what. Okay, there's a.
I don't do the reverse winding like that.
That's a 2 pair. That's X wound. Hold on. That's a 12.5 advance. Those are.
I see the winding pattern.
There's a 6.2 advance. Okay, there's there's an X wound. There's a 6.2 advance, and that's 4 legs actually. And now let's see here.
But I want to figure out, I've never even liked that there's a takeoff, that there's an input and output, because I wanted to keep the circuits closed, but that's not easy today.
Yeah, well, that's a 36 point.
Okay.
Point. Okay, let's see. Let me look here. That's a 2 pair. And this one, that's 4. That's 4 pair, 2 right.
Oh, I see it.
left hand.
So why were you doing that? How did that happen?
Pardon?
How did that happen? What were the results of it? More importantly, what was the results?
Actually, did you see that one that was 6 pair, or 3 pair? 6.
That would be base 50.
Pardon?
3 pair is base 50. How does it work? What does it do?
Here it is, right here. 3 pair forward, 3
Well,
pair
but
back.
I see. I don't like the counterwound like that. But boy, is this thing heavy.
Pardon?
It's a lot of copper.
Yeah, I know.
It's heavy.
A lot of copper in that puppy.
If I'm trying to figure out either on the same layer or in the same direction, but it's a start. And I see, and I know you can make it. So you have obviously made some. What are the test results when you start adding more than 2 pair?
Okay, there's quite a few two-pair coils that
That are
in fact,
here.
This is a two-pair coil right here. This is a pair going forward, right hand, and a pair going backward, left
See,
hand.
I don't like the counter direction
Pardon?
like that. I don't like it counter to each, I like to keep the same direction. So I had tried, at least that's, you know, I can't say absolutely what's right and what's not. But what are you doing with them?
Okay. Now here.
Can you say what you're doing with them?
Yes. Okay. This one we were using for a motor generator. And we were using diametrically polarized. There's a lot of copper in there. It's a heavy Chevy. There's a nickel or a dime's worth of copper in there. But what we were doing with this one was energizing. That was an early electromagnetic therapy coil. And let's see, what's the number on that thing? What's the serial number?
And
What's
this
it
is EC7. Is there anything-
JEC7?
J, is that a
Okay,
J?
let's see what that coil actually looked like here. Okay, there's that coil being starting to build up right there. There's the first pair, then there's the second pair.
I can't believe all the massive amount of
Pardon?
time and work you've put into this. It's massive, just like I do into the math.
And what we've done is that with this one, we started with a single pair, forward wound, and we experimented using one pair to energize and rotate the magnet, and the second one to take as an inductor to take the.
You must. Did I turn it off?
Did you shut yours off accidentally? Oh, here, let's see. Hold on. You slipped it onto mute, you funny guy. There, you better.
You must be commercializing something. You must,
Not yet.
but you must be getting
No,
somewhere.
we're still researching and cataloging. We've learned so much, and we're continuing because we keep every time we cross a new threshold, we learn something neat and cool and very, very interesting. We've decided, and some of the people who are winding these coils are some of the people sitting in the back around here. That big guy that's the production manager back here, the tech crew. A lot of these coils are his. You know,
Whose?
a lot of these coils he wound. You know,
Who?
Don Kuntz, the guy in the back. Yeah, he wound. He wound some of these coils. I can back up there, and you can see if it starts with a DC prefix.
Because I wanted that expanding and contracting and I didn't want the same gauge, can you figure out how to do the same thing now but doing it with a changing aspect ratio, a new kind of conductor like an ionized gas or plasma? I know Andrew thinks about it. I tell Willie to do it all the time. Eric's, one half of his brain is a plasma.
See, this is one of Don Kuntz's coils right here. The production manager. This is one of his. But here's another one of his. This is what one of his. Excuse me. I think that's me. I'm gonna turn around so I don't have to face the speaker. But there's a. That one is two parallel
Okay,
lines forward.
so let me talk about what Willie has on his mind. He's right now working on a motor that the greater the load, the lower the draw. Jamie demonstrated that. I think several people did with YouTube. Have you ever taken your coils and tried to do anything like that yet?
Yeah, we've. I like that apparatus right there. We have one that's actually made out of Delrin that's similar, and to isolate all the ferromagnetic materials, a lot of our holding fixtures when we're testing are all non-ferromagnetic. This is brass rods with a special non-magnetic stainless spring and the stainless washer with Delrin. The hinge points pressed in here, that's a stainless fastener in the middle. The nice thing about this one is that when we're running tests, you can pop this open and the conductors come out to the sides so that that spring load that holds that clamp up. But for doing a lot of the research that we've been doing, we want to take anything ferromagnetic out of the equation. And this has been incredibly helpful because we can suspend this around that magnet and hold it there, and this is a perfect holding fixture. We've got quite a few dozen experimental jaws like this,
A lot of you may not even know why we do this with coils. But if it wasn't for coils, we wouldn't have our electric, we wouldn't have any of this technology. Our body's this mortal coil. Everything's a coil. Our protein folds in coils. Chromosomes. I don't think it's helpful going to be very beneficial for me to show these illustrations, but I still want to cut through them because I just like to finish what I started. But it's a real mess. You want to try and do it, John? Where's Peter? Maybe at another time we'll really do it right, but I'd like to still just cut through them. I'm not going to finish it because it's going to be redundant. Can I do that? John, will you do it for me?
say it again?
I gave you that USB flash drive, and would you pull up on it? It says symmetry of primes.
Yeah, we can do that.
It's going to kind of be like weird. I mean, I don't expect anybody to fully understand what's being said. If anybody here was really good at reading matrix algebra math or computer science, architecture math, I'd be glad to give them Russell Blake's Fractals paper. I'd be glad to share all the documents. I can't read them. Maybe you can explain them to me. It's all based on this math, though. So Peter will mail them to you. Should I give out your email? Peter helped me with we should all really thank Peter for the PowerPoint presentation, because I didn't even have that done till he came to my rescue this afternoon.
You know what? I may not have understood your question. You were at
That little flash drive, you gave it to me. It's one of these.
Yep, and it's actually already on here.
And does it say symmetry?
I am preparing to open it up, and it is loading as we speak.
It's endless.
Were you asking if I had potential commercialization ideas? Is that what you were asking?
Anybody who voraciously works so diligently on something, eventually there's going to be a spin-off. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
That's this. I thought it was the
I
spin-off.
think you better give that to Peter.
Good. I know that you must be having a whole new technology that you're coming out with for the time and energy that you've invested in it.
We're experimenting with high RPM. Which one did you want? Pardon?
I mean, there's so many technological, this just revolutionizes everything it touches, from motors to propulsion systems, to antennas. So with your information data bank that you're creating, obviously you're getting ready to prepare to undertake something. Okay, so these diagrams are not going to be organized or clean. It's a mess. I'm just going to cut through them because this is how my mind works. It was a brilliant discovery by the person who worked with me. I did not know why we count in base 10. I knew it wasn't because we had 10 fingers, because we don't. This is 50-50. Every time you half, the powers of 10, base 10, 1, 10, 100, 1,000, that's 10n. 10 times 1,000 is 10,000, 100,000. 10n comes from halving. It's a chain reaction, okay? This is 50-50, or 5/10. Then you have 0.25, which is 4. Now I had 2, now I have 4. But they're each, you start with a bottle of wine. You can have 2 bottles of wine. These are both, let's say, 100% full. It's undefined how much is in them. They're both 100%. They're completely different volume amounts. Nature works for the powers of 10s that as it increases the quantity, it lowers the content. So if you go from 2 to 4, they're now each from 50% to 25%, but that's 25 hundredths from 50 from 5/10, and 10 times 10 is 100. The next number must be 1,000, because 10 times 100 is 1,000. Half of 0.25 is now 8, which is 0.125. There's 8 of them, and what's 125 as a fraction? 125 thousandths. So every time you increase your quantity by a chain reaction, 1 neutrino liberates 2, liberates 4, you're also increasing to the powers of 10. Why was I explaining this? Okay, so this is real important. This is base 26, mod 25. We're just going to rip through them. But this is, see how where they end with the 15 and 10? That's real important. Because the 3 and 6, the magnetic field, that red line is the magnetic field, and the 25 throughout there in certain places is a flux. Thank you, that would help real good.
Here it comes.
Thank you.
We made that one so it presses hard, so we don't have any accidental firings.
Okay.
We had a couple speakers last year that flashed a couple of people.
Okay. All right, so let's just cut through real quick. I was really doing this, if we had done the presentation, I was going to show why it's 4-pair, but, so next slide, please. That's the original work showing base 26 multiples of 5. That's base, that's mod 25. And there are 4 circuits now. John, Willie, do you see the 4 circuits? They're both going in the same direction. Interestingly, there's no shear between those 2 conductors, but there is still a shear on the outside of the pair. The people who follow my work know what I mean by that shear. The shear never changes on a coil. There's 3 shears for base 10. This would always be 1, 4, 7 along here. I know it's Greek, but believe me, the people who work with it understand it. Let's keep going. This is, again, the original work done by myself and Farrenthorpe. Farrenthorpe did all the numbers. He figured out why the base 10 system, why we use it, because it's the first prime squared. He took the next prime. That's a coil. That's a machine. Let's keep going. We'll just cut through it, just so you can see it. It's a great discovery. You can just keep going. Next. That's, again, how we represented it. Except now we're doing base 50. Keep going. And keep going. It's just none of you have ever seen this. I've never presented this publicly, and I wanted to have it more well explained. And this is underpinning nested vortices and how they work, compressing and decompressing. I know no one understands. It's like a foreign language. Just next one, and next one, and next one. That was done in my house in Hawaii once. Okay, so just next one, and next one. So are we done? Okay, let's go to another folder. Let's take a completely different folder. These were all actually there for my own use and my own work, but I threw them all into a folder that I was going to share here. Why don't we, why don't we come down there so we can see. Okay, I don't know which folder, any folder you want. Anyway, that discovery is such a big discovery that there's no words to describe it. It transforms all academia, all institutions of understanding, because that's an XYZ. You see, I haven't taught you how those numbers work and how they work waves and ripples and pass energy, but essentially it shows that it's not arbitrary, that that we don't count in base 10 system because we have 10 fingers, that essentially it shows that there's a connection between base counting systems and a toroid and energy and physics. And that numbers can model 3D space. It's pretty hard to believe. And the numbers don't move, the functions move. Numbers are nodes, they're stationary vector interstices, but you have to see it in action to really fully appreciate it. So any folder you want, I just threw it all in there. You might say that is truly the garbage disposal of all the things on that topic. So tomorrow, although I have a bad throat, I will take this chalk because I took it out of space, and I'll matrix see out. I'll show scaling. I'll show the illustration, the animation that I wanted that we weren't able to get finished. And I'll show how everything goes from micro to macro, macro to micro. Okay, that's very good. I wish it was a little bit more focused. That's the base 10 system showing that it cycles. There's 3 toruses, and that where the shears come from. And those are the underpinning nested vortices. They're staggered. And those are actually just the circuits of the conductors. That's actually the same. That's actually this. I know it's hard to believe, but it's the same thing. Okay. So and that's showing that prime number squared. That was the original discovery. I guess a lot of you don't know the original discovery. That is a circle, 360 divided by 40 is 9, the base 10 system. And everything comes from 1 connects to 2, 2 connects to 4, 4 connects to 8 because it's doubling, 8 connects to 16, but I'm casting out 9. It's called decimal parity in computer science. It's just like numerology. I go 1 plus 6 equals 7. And then 16 doubled is 32, which equals 5. I need a different laser. It's too hard to push. And then after 32, you go to 64, which equals 10, which equals 1. That's why the I Ching or the mind counter is 64. It's, I need a softer one, please.
Pardon's on the chair here.
Is there a, oh, right there, thank you. So it isn't that 64 is 8 times 8 is 64. It's because it's one complete cycle of infinity. You recognize the Mobius or the lazy 8. Okay, so after 64, you go to 128 equals 11 equals 2. 128 doubled is 256 equals 13 equals 4. 512 is 256 doubled equals 8. 1024 7. 2048 equals 14 is 5. Infinity only has 6 numbers because infinity is not a straight line. It's a bounded infinity. It's infinity of duration, not direction. And it follows a predetermined pathway that all continuous mediums follow, no matter what it is. The more it accelerates, the more it converges to this pathway. And that's a coil. But it's a language. You've got to know how to use it. Half of 1 is 0.5. 0.25 is 7. 0.125 is 8. 0.0625 is 13 is 4. 0.03125 is 11 is 2. And infinitely on. And I could explain all the other number patterns, but I'll just keep going. You can just rip through them. Okay. I don't even know what that folder was. Okay, pull up another one. If you would. Let's try a different folder. That again is the original work on base 25 and base 26 and base 50. Okay. Okay, another folder again, please. That's how we calculate things. It's very important that the number where you end, if it comes to an end number, you actually, and it's not a circuit, only the magnetic field comes to an end number. And you don't go in the reverse direction. Once you continue, you count that number a second time. So when it ends like on we had these before, so let's try a different one. So like when I ended up on the 3 or the 6, there's really another 3 hidden behind it or another 6. So you go 9 to 3. The next number is positive 9 to negative 3. The next number, you stay at the 3. The next number is positive 3. And then the next number is negative 9. Because remember I started positive 9? Because just like I can hide 2 hands behind each other, it's like a cookie cutter. That VW symbol, there was really another 9 numbers hidden behind it, 18 numbers. And when you add polarity and you know how to use it, it works real easy. Okay, so let's go to different ones, although this was the original discovery, the original work. Let's keep going. You can go ahead and pick a different folder. I know it's really hard. You see how I got them all thrown in there, Peter? That again is part of the original work way back. It's over a decade old. Okay, but let's still try a different folder. See, I told you it wasn't organized. Maybe I shouldn't drag you through it. I just didn't want to give up. But I probably should. How you doing?
Pick a folder.
Well, Randy just did this. These are a base system showing the underpinning nested vortices. We were doing it to look for the shears. Again, this is all based on prime numbers. Prime numbers create base counting systems. Oops, not there. Here's a picture of Farron Thorpe, who made the original discovery. That was my house in Hilo, one of our Persian rugs. Primes. Okay. So I guess I'm about done. Let's see, where do we go? We go up. Symmetry of primes. Daniel. I'm done. So that completes it for the, if you want me to show scaling at another time, then I will. Okay. So I completed what I wanted to accomplish on the presentation, as discombobulated as it may seem. But he's a professor now at Washington University and very, very, very bright. So, any questions? Okay, thank you. I don't know, when would be a good time? When does the lecture end?